I'll call this video The Pendulum of Revenge, or Hunter Biden Goes to Washington. The president's son, pardoned by his own father. No one else would have pardoned him, a man whose name in recent years has become synonymous with crack. Well, you know what that is, right? Foreign contracts selling out the homeland, the laptop, and this person looks into the camera and calls his own party, the Democrats, evil. He says, the Democrats are stealing your money. He says you can't trust Kamala Harris. And he hints that he might go into power himself. It sounds like a joke, right? He himself says, oh, it was a joke, it was a joke. But there's a grain of truth in every joke. Continuation. Ask yourself one question, which doesn't sound like a joke anymore, not at all. Why would someone who knows all the secrets of the Democratic Party from the inside suddenly set this machine on fire in public? And what will happen if a joke one day stops being a joke? Today, Hunter is going to Washington, but could he? But would you vote for him? Does he have something that keeps his own people under control? And at the very end, a duel that is more important than anything else. Hunter Biden versus DJ Vance. Which one of them would people follow into the fire? I promise you two things by the end. First, you'll understand what's just theater here and what's a real story that's dangerous for the Democrats. Because it's not about Hunter the candidate, it's about the emptiness he inadvertently exposed. And second, most importantly, I'll give you an answer. A single comparison that answers the question of who this country is really ready to follow. Keep the promise in mind. But for now, who is the new Hunter? A year ago, Hunter Biden was still hiding. Courts, a tax case, a pardon from his father at the very end of his term, and then silence. But in the spring of 2026, he suddenly came back, became active on social media. He started talking a lot, loudly, without a filter. He really has no filter. By the way, that's what makes him interesting. The starting point is somewhere in the summer of 2025. A 3-hour interview with blogger Andrew Callahan. 3 hours, with swearing gentlemen. The movers would have just crawled under the tables out of embarrassment, with fury, without a PR person behind him. Then a podcast with Gavin Newsom himself. He went for it. To Gavin Newsom, so our governor has a podcast. They all try to do this after Ronald Reagan, thinking it's the secret to success. So, where's the host? Jokingly introduced him as the candidate for 2028, and Hunter played along. Well, yeah, I'll go, but only as vice president under Newsom. In the morning, he himself wrote on X that it was a joke. Was it a joke or not? Here's the first thing you need to understand clearly, no clickbait. There is no leak suggesting that Hunter is seriously running for president. There is a person who has returned to the public sphere angry, very uninhibited, and luckily for us, extremely talkative. And this, as we will see now, is much more dangerous for his party than any real election campaign. Because you can defeat a candidate in an election, well, you silence him and he's gone, right? But what do you do with your own guy who has stopped being afraid? Who hates? Who is their spirit? And who says out loud whatever he wants? And who, remembers a lot of things. Well, of course, he forgot half of it because he was drunk at the time, but he remembers the other half. And why does he hate his own party? Why is Biden's son wrecking the U.S. Democratic Party? It's important not to be mistaken here. This isn't an ideological split. Hunter didn't suddenly become a libertarian or, God forbid, a Republican, right? Hunter doesn't care about ideology at all. Like, not at all. I don't think he knows. He just loves money. The rest, he doesn't really care about. It's all about money, drugs, girls. And he gets really angry, too. His personal rage is the scariest thing in the world. It's called revenge. When a person is consumed by revenge, it's hard to hold him back. He can't forgive the party. How it treated his father. Well, for us, his old man was, so to speak, half-heard. Crazy, you could say, mumbling. Alzheimer's, and so on. Shame, shame, shame. But for him, that's his father, his dad. Just like friends, donors. Only yesterday, after one failed debate night, they turned around and pushed the old man out of the race. That's how he sees it. They pushed the old man out of the race. He made the actor and major donor George Clooney the main symbol of this betrayal, the very same one who first raised serious money for Biden and then wrote a column in the New York Times, "It's time to go." For Hunter, this is the party's face. As long as you're useful, they carry you on their hands. As soon as you stumble, well, you know how they treat those who've outlived their usefulness. And that's where his wording comes from. Democrats grit their teeth at his wording. He says the party has turned into a unified financial ecosystem. Well, like the Revolutionary Guard Corps in Iran, right? Which does nothing but line the pockets of its own people. He says we need someone who will come and break this. Break this. By the way, Trump is about to break this now. We need a new direction. New. And he thinks Kamala Harris is absolutely incapable, empty. I won't repeat it, because he wasn't shut down, but I could be shut down. Does he even like democracy? Well, yeah, he likes to milk it, but otherwise, no. They praised Newsom, called him the greatest warrior of the party, but he despises the establishment, the apparatus, the donors, Clooney and Kamala. So he's not against the ideas. He's against those specific people who, in his opinion, betrayed them. Who was betrayed? His dad. His family was betrayed. Our family was betrayed. That's the point. And here's where it gets interesting. When a disgruntled insider, out of anger, tells the truth about his own circle, the words still remain true. Regardless of the motive, they steal, they feed themselves, they need to be broken. This wasn't said by a Republican agitator. It was said by the son of their own president. It's hard to dismiss. To say this is enemy propaganda. Enemy? Well, maybe it's enemy, right? But from inside your own stable. And here's the question that's hanging in the air and everyone is avoiding. Does Hunter have something that can be used to hold the party by the throat? That is, does he have blackmail material? That's what is meant, right? Let's be completely honest. No, there's no evidence that he has any compromising material, no suitcase, nothing. I won't try to sell you something I haven't seen. Trust, as they say, is more valuable than a loud statement. But it's not even about the suitcase, it's about the person himself. Think about it. Who is Hunter from the perspective of the party machine? He spent 20 years at the heart of the Biden family. He was there when deals were made, conversations were held, and decisions were made. He personally knows who promised what to whom. And now he's offended, risky, unrestrained, without a position to lose. Well, what do they use to scare you, right? Oh, we'll take away your position. Oh, you won't get elected now. Oh, yeah, that's it. He doesn't have any of that, right? He has no fear. The kind that maybe used to keep his mouth shut because his dad was still there, right? Now he's live on air. He's live on air for 3 hours and says whatever he wants. Except for Trump, I don't think anyone else does that. For the party machine, this is a terrible, terrible thing. It's scarier than any folder of evidence, because a folder can be challenged. But a living witness who at any moment can blurt something out in front of a multi-million audience, how do you challenge that? How do you shut them up? His own anger is his weapon, not blackmail in a briefcase, but complete unpredictability. That's why I'm saying this. His candidacy is nothing, but his microphone is another matter. Hunter dropped a phrase. They're stealing your money. Oops. He said it in the heat of the moment. About his offenders, well, let's hold him to his word and see. Is there anything there, so to speak, that we can latch on to? This is exactly the kind of life under their rule that should be discussed not with slogans, but with facts. California, homelessness. According to various estimates, the state has poured about almost $24 billion into fighting it over the past few years. And the result? A very good result. It got worse. Not better. I didn't misspeak. The Federal Prosecutor's Office of the Central District has created a separate task force for fraud in this area and has already filed charges amounting to $100 million. One of the suspects was responsible for resettling 300 homeless people and, according to the investigation, used the money to buy a house in a prestigious neighborhood another house in Greece, and vacations in luxury hotels. An audit by the New York Post tracked the distribution of $50 million, only $13 million was accounted for. Stop. $50 million. And only $13 million was accounted for. They have no idea where the rest is. How can they not know? After all, Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass writes about zero tolerance for mismanagement. And where are those remaining 50 minus 13? How much is left? Well, as was aptly noted, she only sprang into action exactly when they got caught. And not before that. What about before the criminal cases? For some reason, no one asked where the money was. Ohio Medicaid. In Congress, they showed 94 fake home care companies. 94 fake companies. From one office. One landlord at one address. And no one was surprised by that. Somewhere there, where they're supposed to check abandoned premises, there's a sign saying, "Out to lunch," that's been hanging for several months. Stacks of unread mail with postmarks from 6 months ago. And the crown jewel is the cleaning lady. The cleaning lady in that place renamed her. Well, actually, she didn't rename it. She just created a company, called it the Mental Health Service, and started billing the government. 100,000 went through in the first month, then 600,000 and 650,000 in a month. And when there was a hint of an inspection, she closed the door and left the country as a multi-millionaire. Where is she? Nobody knows. Different last and first names, no one knows her address. Why does this happen? I want to emphasize once again, she worked as a cleaning lady at this company, which had a crazy number of addresses, and everyone was getting paid. She said to herself, how interesting. She set up a company, got several million, and left. The answer they gave at those same meetings is brilliant in its simplicity. It's federal money, but it's distributed by the states. You understand, right? And for the feds, it's someone else's money, ours. And for the state, it's just money they've been caught with. It's not that the ideas are unrelated to them. It's just about money lying there. So they're spending not just someone else's, but someone else's, someone else's, someone else's, completely someone else's, someone else's, and someone else's. You know, we start to understand, yeah, they don't care. Elon Musk said a year ago that Washington is full of people who don't care about stolen money because the money isn't theirs. Well, he opened our eyes, so to speak, and before that, we didn't understand it. It's always important when someone who checks these things says it. So here's a registration to Hunter's words. He actually meant personal enemies, but it turned out to be a diagnosis of the whole system, where other people's money is managed by those who don't really care about losing it. No. Tell me, please, what do you think? Does an official in Washington who transferred $362 million to the state of Minnesota, they then started to embezzle and steal them? Which of the officials cares about that? They only care if it benefits them, nothing more. Right. And here I have to say something I didn't mention at the beginning, because after putting all this together, I saw the real story. And it's not about Kunter the candidate. Ask yourself, why did Hunter, who just joked about the vice presidency, become a news item like news number 1? Why is a parody meme, a drug addict, and a fool making America again being discussed seriously? It's not because Kunter is that important, no. It's because the Democratic Party didn't have anyone more prominent to take that spot for discussion. That's the twist. When a political force has a program, a vision for the future, a leader that people follow. Maybe even several leaders competing for leadership. Yeah, she doesn't have time to run around with podcast jokes from the pardoned son of the former president. And when he himself becomes the one being discussed with a fresh voice, that's not Hunter's strength. It's the emptiness around him. He doesn't fill the stage. He highlights that the stage is empty, and he himself put it into words without even noticing. We need someone who will come and break this. He says we need someone. In other words, there's no one. This isn't a candidate's application. It's a cry that there's no one and nothing to break it with, that the party has no new product. There's only the old one, which no longer works. By the way, what happens when an entire movement runs out of its own meaning and all that's left is just being against? By the way, we break this down to the root on the second channel, the external map to freedom, for those who love to think. The link is below the video. Now let's get to the program, or rather its absence. We're talking about the party. A simple question. What is the Democrats' program? What are they offering voters besides their dislike of Trump? To voters, besides their dislike of Trump, they are offering hatred towards Trump. Take a look at a telling scene on CNN. Two Democrats explode when the host says, "In this cycle, you have only one slogan, something like impeach Trump." "That's not true," shouts one participant. "No one in America is going for that. Elections with impeachment." And in the last seconds before the same broadcast, the second participant calmly says, "Well, actually, I think our main task is to impeach Trump." That's the whole program in one scene. In words, we're about inflation, about urgent issues, but in reality, it's impeachment. So it's against, not for. But being against something between us is not a program, it's an emotion. An emotion can start a rally, but you can't build a future on it. To win, you need an answer to the question, what are you doing for me? That's what a person asks before they go to vote. What are you doing for me? Not just, who do you hate? And after a government that gave $24 billion for homelessness and ended up with more homeless people, the party doesn't have an answer to that right now. That's why they have to cling to impeachment, to podcast jokes out of desperation. And now, what I promised at the very beginning, one comparison that answers everything. Let's put them side by side, Hunter Biden and J.D. Vance. Question, simple and ancient. Which of these people would Americans follow to camp? Fire. J.D. Vance is the vice president today. According to polls, the clear Republican favorite for 28 from 36 to 40% among the public, and about 71% in the primaries. He has strong support among his own party and attention, especially among young people, which hasn't always been the main advantage for Republicans, right? Biography. He grew up in a poor mining town in a family with drug addiction and He joined the Marine Corps, served, was in Iraq, then went to Yale. He got into law school, wrote a book that was made into a movie, made his own way from the bottom to the top, on his own. And Hunter Biden never served, never held any elected office anywhere, never wore a uniform for a single day. The public image is about addiction to anything, to everything. Drugs, alcohol, sex, scandal, a laptop, foreign deals, and pardons signed by his own father. Otherwise, he would be serving time and serving and serving. And his candidacy is a joke, which he himself called a joke the next morning. And now, literally, the very question you asked yourself at the beginning, who are people willing to follow to their death? First, he was genuine. People truly followed him in uniform, under fire in another country. And the other? I don't know. Decide for yourselves. Because loyalty and willingness to sacrifice are the only currency you can't buy or play up on a podcast. You earn it with your life, and the people, no matter what anyone thinks of them, can always tell the difference between a life truly lived and a role just played. Would you vote for Hunter? Write it in the comments, honestly, okay? But before you write, ask yourself, not, do I like him more than Trump? But this, would I follow him to where they come back from? And here's the hopeful takeaway this was really all about. It would seem like a sad picture. One party is at a dead end, and the favorites are determined by scandals and memes, while serious conversation drowns in podcast jokes. But look deeper and you'll see some good news. The good news is that comparison actually works. As soon as you hear Hunter versus Vance, you immediately feel the difference. So people still can't be fooled by a flashy name and a nice highlight reel. So a life truly lived is still distinguished from one that's just acted out. So leadership is still something you earn, not something you inherit or beg for. And remember this as a tool for any election in any country. Don't ask, who do I like more on the screen like most people do? Ask what this person has built himself, what he has risked. Would I follow him when things get really tough? There are few people who answer questions with actions, not words, but they do exist. And as long as you know how to tell them apart, no empty party, no offended air, no flashy meme will choose your leader for you. You will choose by their deeds. And this, believe me, is freedom in its most ordinary form. On the main channel, every day I analyze the big news just like this, straightforward, without party propaganda, but also without sugarcoating, getting to the root of things. Why do movements become empty? And how can you tell a real leader from a fake one? We dig into this in our roadmap to freedom, twice a week for those who like to think. Subscribe here and there, and only follow those who are truly worth it. Goodbye.